Hi, welcome to Tales of Dread. Some people wonder if magic could be used to control these dogmen or werewolves. Well, let me tell you about a voodoo practitioner I met when I was a boy in Mississippi in 1956. Her name was Miss Georgia, and she was a little old black woman. She was 72 years old and a widow. Nice lady. Now, back then, my father was one of the few white people who worked in what they called town. That was the part of the city where black people lived, and it was called building work at the time. So, I would help him with odd jobs in that area, which is how we met Miss Georgia when her roof started leaking. My dad has heard from her that she needs help. We go over when we get there. These two guys had been drinking and driving, so they drove their truck up on her lawn, smashed into her front porch, and destroyed her steps. When they talk to Miss Georgia, she tells them that it's fine as long as they pay for the steps. She tells them that if they give my father the money, he'll fix the steps, and that's all she wants. Nothing is wrong. But when we got back in the truck, my dad, who knew these guys, told me, you know, son, they're not going to pay this money. This is going to be a problem. The leak in the roof is fixed. After a few days, my dad and I went to the house of the Thompson boys to get $30 to fix the steps. Then they told us they weren't going to pay and said they'd send their dogs after us. I remember standing on their porch with my dad, who had a mad look in his eyes as he said, "Listen, boys, you're wrong. She could have called the sheriff, and you could have gotten into all kinds of trouble. All that girl wants is for you to fix her stairs. Just give me the money I need to fix the steps, and we're done." But they keep saying that they won't pay well. We get in the truck and go to Miss Georgia's house with my dad to tell her what they said. And she just smiles and says, "Give it 2 days, then come back." She tells them that if they don't pay the money, the price goes up by $20 for every 2 days that her steps aren't fixed, so they should pay now while they can. 2 days later, my father and I go back to the Thompson boys' house, and they laugh at us. Then we go to Miss George's house to tell her what happened, but she's not there. This old woman has no family, no car, no nothing. But we have already gone all the way around this house and knocked on every door and window. We thought she might have died, but she isn't at home. When we come back the next morning, she is sitting on the porch with red eyes and a sick look. My dad told this woman she needs to go to the hospital because her legs and ankles are swollen, but she says no, it's just a temporary thing. All we have to do is go back to the Thompson boys' house and get the money. She told us that if they don't pay us now, they will soon. So we go back to their house, where it is clear that something is wrong. They have parked their truck in a way that blocks the front door. This time, I'm sitting in the truck when Dad knocks on the door. When they open it, they're scared and peek out, head out, and look left and right. He tells him, "Listen, Miss Georgia said the price will just keep going up. Pay her her money and get it over with the oldest." Ed Thompson looks right into my dad's eye and says, "Listen, we can't deal with that right now because something came through here last night and killed all our dogs and tried to break down our front door." Then he points his gun at my father and tells him to leave because he doesn't have enough money to pay her. So, when my dad gets back in the truck, he's so mad about the whole thing that he decides to go to the building materials and fix the steps himself. So we go to the junkyard, get some wood, and then go to Miss Georgia's house. Now, when we get there, she's standing on the porch with a furious look in her eyes. Before we could even get out of the truck, she says, "Listen, I told you the boys would pay for what they did. I don't want you to pay for their mistakes with your hard-earned money. I want them to learn from their mistakes." She said, you and your son don't have to do anything else for me besides go to their house and get their money. Just do what I tell you to do." Then Miss Georgia pulls out $20 and gives it to my father to pay for the materials he had already bought. She tells him to use it somewhere else because those boys are going to pay for what they did. That night, we leave. I'm eating dinner with my parents at home. My dad is angry because he knows that the Thompson boys are treating Miss Georgia badly because she is black. My mom says that Miss Georgia knows who do it and that if she were them, she would have paid that woman the money a long time ago because she doesn't know what she's going to do to them. Now, here's where the story gets crazy. The next morning, my dad and I go back to the Thompson boys' house. When we pull up, the Thompson boys run out and ask us to take them to see Miss Georgia. They said that this state had circled their house again last night and ripped open the tires on their truck. When they looked at the truck, all the tires looked like they had been shredded by a machine. They're so upset that it's hard to make out what they're saying, but they say they saw her standing outside at 3 a.m. She was petting the huge wolf like it was a dog. But this dog was the same height as she was when she was on all fours, so when they tried to shoot her, the bullets just went right through her. Now, I could tell by the look in these men's eyes that something strange had happened. They insisted that my dad take them to Miss Georgia's house, so they hopped in the back of our truck and we drove over to her place. When we got there, she was sitting on the porch, so they got out and apologized profusely, telling her that they didn't have the money to pay her back, but they were going to get paid in a few days, and when they got paid, not only would she just gives them a smile. As I watch the situation from where I'm sitting, I realize that Miss Georgia looked normal again just the day before. Even though her body was swollen and fat, she looked fine. She tells them, "All I want you boys to do is pay me back what you owe me. Everything will be fine after that." Now, they agreed to pay her in 3 days, which is Friday. Again, she tells them to pay my dad $100 and everything will be fine. But until then, there is still everything else I want to say. After that, my dad wouldn't tell me what happened, so I don't know. But I know the following about Thursday night. At 11 o'clock at night, the Thompson brothers come to our door. Money in hand, blood and sweat all over, begging, "Please, please, you're friends with her, tell her to make it stop, make the werewolf stop." Now I remember this like it was yesterday. My dad was at the front door, my mom was right behind him, and I was right behind her. I heard the words werewolf with my own ears and saw blood and sweat on them with my own eyes. Those boys looked like they'd been to holy hell and back. And remember that $100 was a lot back then. My dad finally fixed those stairs on Friday night, and the whole thing cost about $20. So, he goes to Miss Georgia to give her the rest of the money. The little old lady takes the money, opens the book she's sitting on, and puts it inside. The pages inside the book had been cut out, and I had never seen so much money at once. Then she looks at me and my father and says, "Listen, this was never about the money. It's about them learning to respect other people's property. If my husband was still alive, he would have killed them both with a gun." Then she got up and went back inside. When I was 18, I started doing her lawn work and other odd jobs around the house. I knew that integration was happening, but people were still living in separate groups, and I was the only white kid who regularly went into that neighborhood and got to know everyone there. Then one day, the boys told me to be careful because Miss Georgia might put a curse on me. They told me this when they were 5 houses down from us, but when I went back up to Miss Georgia, she knew exactly what they said and told me, "Honey, you don't ever have to worry about anybody putting a curse on you. You are a good young man with a good heart. But I want you to remember that when you're older, you'll meet 2 women. Make sure you keep the one with red hair. I don't know what her name is, but you've known her for 3 lives. That's your perfect person. Now that I'm 25, I'm seeing 2 different women. Yes, one of them was a woman with red hair. That woman is still my wife. She was right, Miss Georgia. It felt like we'd known each other for a long time. Miss Georgia was 94 when she died. I really like that little lady, so it was a sad day for me. And her house burned down a week after she died. The guys in the neighborhood said they were playing football outside when they smelled smoke. Within minutes, the whole house was on fire. Now, there are no living family members or relatives around to claim the property until they die. It was eventually given to the state, which sold it to someone who decided to build a house on it. So, the Black family, who built and moved into that house. They only lived there for 6 months because they said there was too much weird paranormal activity there. I'll tell you how I think things are going. I'm just going to tell you what I think and what I think might have happened when Miss Georgia died. I don't think she's at all moved on. I think her soul and spirit are connected to that house. She found a way to hold herself in place there. Now, the part of this situation that hurts and annoys me the most is that over time, the story about her has changed and grown, and now people say that she was like this evil who did what, but she wasn't. She was the nicest and sweetest old lady you'd ever meet. Crossing her was just a bad idea.